welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Melissa. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. Today's Monday, and if you're new to my channel, I talk about true crime in my channel. On the whole month of November, I'm going to be doing solved cases, and on Friday, I talk about missing children. This week, because of Thanksgiving, I will be uploading on Wednesday. I hope I'm going to be uploading on Wednesday. I'm going to try to find a case that was solved or unsolved that happened in Thanksgiving. So yeah, this week y'all be getting 3 uploads this week. Yeah, that. I'm sorry guys. Today's Monday. It's raining and there's just so much going on. Before I get started on this video, I've been I'm gonna tell y'all something that I may be asked or anything. I know that's none of my videos. If you've been here from day one, none of my videos I don't edit. I upload my videos. Although I do my videos and I upload them, I don't edit them. I'm not good at editing videos, so I just record my videos and then I upload them and put them on YouTube. I'm not doing this to get subscribed, I'm not doing this for me to gain subscribers. If I do gain subscribers, thank you for subscribing to my channel. One of my most viewed video is the Delano video. I don't know how much, I haven't checked there in a while, but I know that's one of my most viewed videos of all time. But I do this because I love true crime. I love talking about these cases and just making sure that we don't forget about these victims and their family and everything, and just know that we're there for them. So yes, so let's get started. So today I'm gonna be doing another soft case, and it's gonna be the Everett Delano. I hope I'm saying his name right, so I'm just gonna be calling him Delano. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. And this case was solved after 53 years. So Everett Delano, a hardworking Navy man, stayed busy between working security as an overnight watchman and his part-time shift at a combo gas station mechanic shop. He was putting in 60-hour weeks. He had 3 kids, Darla, Denise, and he worked hard to provide for them. The family had lived all over the place with his work in the USA Navy, a raider in rodeo operations, from Rhode Island to Florida, from California to South Carolina. Everett had a successful career, achieved the rank of Chief Petty Officer. He had entered the service in 1941 and at the outset of World War II, and served throughout the war, primarily on shipping in the Pacific. The family mostly lived in base housing as they moved around, but although their scenery and friendship changed from year to year, they were anchored by visit to see Everett's extended family in Oregon, Massachusetts, and his wife family near London in New Hampshire. Everett would be gone for months at a time when he was to see ships in the Mediterranean, but when he was in town working on base, he had regular hours and would spend a lot of time with his family. Blanche was looking for more stability in their living situation, especially as the kids were getting older. They decided to settle down near her family in Walton, New Hampshire, as a small town usually in the valleys of the mountains that lay between Corrode and Lebanon, New Hampshire. So in 1964, Everett retired from the Navy. Everett was a high-ranking enlisted man in the Navy with authorities and a lot of responsibility, and Darla suspected that he may have struggled to adapt to his new life as a civilian. He looked for work in radio, television repair, but he couldn't find anything close enough to Wilmot. And after an entire career of short commutes while living on base, he wasn't to need an hour-plus commute to nearly large towns. Although he was still looking around for other options, in the meantime he worked as a security officer on the night shift of the Colbert Sailor College in New London. and he picked up a shift at a gas station mechanic shop in Endeavor. September 1st, 1966 was an original day for Everett. He drove by the familiar colony-style buildings with the signature green shutters and dorm windows. As he cruised down Main Street and on Dover in another small town, that evening in 2021 still doesn't have a stoplight, and pulled into Sovereign Auto Body, where he worked. Kenny Sanborn, the owner, was partnered with Gulf Oil and had the prototypical golf service station at two bay garage attached to a small office area with a walk-up window, where most of the gas transactions were handled. The front of the building was flat as a pancake, a fun New England sample of Western Falls from the agriculture, and the notch top provide a little agriculture interest as well as a nice white siding backdrop for a simple sign. The town's post office was also contained within the small building, and together it was hub of an activity for the little town. Get your car fixed, get your mail, and get some gas. At 8:50 a.m. the morning, Kenneth asked Everett to hold down the fort because he was heading out to run some errands. Everett primarily helped in the office to bring up transportations and the bump refilling customers' cars with fluid. That was the era of full service gas station and gas station attendants. Between 8:50 a.m. and 9:25 a.m., there was activity every 10 minutes or so. The cash register tab indicated 3 sales had occurred. At 9:25 a.m., a local who knew Everett, Marlene Bacon, drove by the station and waved to him. He was backing up a vehicle at the moment. He smiled and waved back. Between 9:25 a.m. and 9:35 a.m. the morning, somebody robbed Sovereign Auto Body, and Everett was the only employee there at the time. The chief confronted Everett and absconded with all the money that was in the register cash drawer, and estimated to be about 75 to 100, but didn't make off when the cash box hidden below, which contained at least an additional 500. A few minutes after the thief departed, a white vehicle pulled up and waited for a bit, hoping that an attendant would help them get their tank filled with no. Apparently, they grew impatient. Around 9:45 a.m., a couple of guys, Raffle and Bruce, showed up. They saw the white car leave, and the woman who was driving shrunk her shoulders as if to say, I don't know where the attendant is, so I'm taking off. They popped their head into the office and heard some noise that sounded almost like snoring. They saw a man laying face down in the office floor, although that may be he was passed out or drunk. Closer to 10 a.m., three more men arrived, Leon, William, and Pat. Ralph and Bruce were still there, and they told the new group that someone was asleep inside the floor. Leon took a look in the office and discovered a pool of blood forming under the man's head, and immediately called the New Hampshire State Police as well as the nearest hospital in New London. And meanwhile, Ralph from the first group of two men drove to the nearly suburban residence and fetched Kenny's wife. They noticed that the cash register drawer was left open and empty, and they started to put two and two together. This was a crime scene and a tragedy. Both the police and the paramedics arrived promptly, and Everett was transported to New London Hospital, where he was stabilized. Police intentionally believed that he was the victim of a serious beating, and it wasn't until he was incapacitated by a medical professional that it was discovered he had been shot 3 times in the head by a .22 caliber handgun. Everett was in a critical condition. He was transported to a major hospital, Mary Hitchcock Hospital in Le Bond, with dim prospects of recovery. The next day at Mary Hitchcock Hospital, Everett passed away, and his father and husband was stolen from his family. Meanwhile, the police were pursuing the crime scene. An original stroke of luck, nobody turned off the water that had been running in this man's restroom since the horrid scene was discovered. When Sunburn's wife arrived, she was careful not to disturb the handles of the faucets either in order to kill the flood of water. She instead shut off the water pump from outside. I presume that they were on the wall water. The police believe that the robber may have been the last person to touch the bathroom faucet, and the shine corner of the fixture would provide an excellent surface for pulling a fingerprint. The state police crime scene technician worked carefully and pulled a good quality lantern fingerprint from the faucet. The police interviewed everyone present and also convinced the neighborhood that they were the ones who discovered Avery's friend Marlene, the woman who waved to. And they even found a man who heard these gunshots as he was driving by the service station. He estimated the time of the shot at 9:45 a.m., but it was Everett's watch that would have the last word. His watch was struck by a bullet with frozen the hour and the minute hand at the exact time of the shooting at 9:35 a.m. An autopsy was performed shortly thereafter, and the medical examiner determined that two of the gunshot wounds to his head had happened in Everett was upright, and the third one, which had gunpowder residue near the interior wound, was inflicted while Everett was on the ground, and the gun was held nearly touching his head. The murder clearly intended to leave no witness. On September 7th, 6 days after the crime, the New Hampshire State Police sent the fingerprint lifted from the faucet to the FBI to add their large national collection. In the months that followed, the state police checked purchase records of a 22 caliber firearms and collected many guns from nearly residents and undervote and from outsiders who had recently purchased a 22 in the vicinity. These guns were subject to ballistic testing, but no one of the guns collected fired the bullets recovered from the scene or the victim. They also searched nearly Waterway, Blackwater River, hoping that the killer had dished the weapon, but the search turned up nothing. By the end of 1966, the case went cold. In 1975, technology company called Rockwell International won a contract to create 5 automatically fingerprint readers that they were collected in Dude Finder. They delivered them to the FBI, and in the year that followed, the FBI successfully covered 15 million criminal fingerprint cards into digital records. Over the following 10 years, Rockwell sold systems to many major metropolitan police departments in the USA, and model station of the old ink and paper finger card system was truly underway. By 1999, the FBI database called Integrated Auto Fingerprint Identification System, still the world's largest fingerprint database, contained the fingerprints that defined 64 million individuals and was available on demand to law enforcement around the country. In 2009, the state of New Hampshire formed this cold case unit, and they did not inventory of all the unsolved homicide in state history, but Everett's name was included on the list. He had been forgotten. It was until 2013 when Everett's youngest daughter, Darlene, called up and brought it to their attention. The efforts were renewed to solve the then 47-year-old cold case, and they didn't have to look very far. The fingerprint found at the crime scene had never been entered into concordant to unknown criminals database. Long were the days of manually comparing fingerprints by this point in 2013. The digital database handled by the FBI was a speedy method to matching fingerprints found at a scene against millions of people while in criminal rape sheet. When the investigation submitted the fingerprint taken from the bathroom faucet, it came back with a match. And after cross-checking it with the state police forensic lab, the match was confirmed as belonging to Thomas Case, who was 20 in 1966. The lab also tested the hair found in the cash register and the cigarettes but found on the ground, but weren't able to pull the DNA from either of them. Thomas Case was no stranger to the law. He occurred 13 convictions between 1966 and 2000 for repeated charges of theft, armed robbery, aggressive assault, and escaping from prison twice. His final conviction in Vetterman in 2000 was for manufacturing drugs at a federal prison. His conviction is summarized in a table below. In the fall of 2013, 40 years after the crime was committed, New Hampshire investigator met with Tom's Case. Tom Case told investigators that he joined the Army at 18 around 1963 and he left 3 years later under general discharge, which in most cases means something wasn't quite up to the standards. Immediately after the 1966, he moved back home to Vanmore and got married before moving to Springfield, Massachusetts. The couple lived there until 1967 when he was arrested for robbery. In his particular accident case said the robber was at the gas station in Springfield using a saw-off shotgun as a weapon. Cass and two accomplices, Ray and Frank, were arrested while attempting to flee the scene. Cass told them that he had spent most of his life behind bars and acknowledged his criminal history, but he denied having any involvement in Everett murder. He didn't know who he was, even claiming to not know where Andrew was, saying he only ever been to the state once in his life. Although in the same interview he also mentioned he had once stolen a car from Vermont and drove to New Hampshire, but apparently that time didn't count, or that the time that he was convicted for two crime offenses in Grafton County District Court in New Hampshire. A few months later, investigator met with Cass a second time, asking if he would submit a DNA sample, to which he agreed. However, when asked to take a polygraph test, he refused. Around the same time, people who were close to Cass were also interviewed, friends, family, and an ex-wife, who told them that Cass first introduced himself to her as a businessman and a crook. She said that when they first met, Cass was working as a roadie for a rock and roll band, Marley's Corner in the Wild Ones, who was known at the time for his wild New England rock and roll, in a similar event to hip shaking piano tunes of Jerry Lee Lewis. Marley's Corner also moonlighted as an art sheet thief who robbed from museums. He was featured in the Netflix documentary This Is Robbery about the infamous 1990 Isabel Sword Garden Museum hits. He was also convicted of double homicide in 1981. But the conviction was overturned a few years later during a second trial. Marley Corner and Tom's Case were best buddies. Marley even acknowledged him on his book, The Art of the Hiss, Confession of a Master Thief, saying, Tom Case, you'll always be my pal. Also around the time he was a roadie for Marley's Case, broke into a family's home and terrorized them and inciting them once again landed him in prison. Cass' ex-wife told investigators that his home life growing up was rough. His father was an alcoholic and the household was abusive. She also said that he was a very violent person and on multiple occasions had threatened to kill her. She subsequently got a restraining order and eliminated the divorce. She mentioned Cass would frequently brag about his crimes, partly calling himself a career criminal. She also believed that he had no problem with hurting people to get what he wanted. Another ex-wife told investigators the company Cass kept was no better than he, telling them of a conversation she overheard between his friend laughing in Boston over a murder they alleged gotten away with in the 70s. She also recalled an evening where Cass stormed out of their home, gun in hand, to go take care of somebody who owed him his money. On occasion, she would witness the bloody and beating aftermath of people who crossed Cass, and she remembered a time he used to put off one of his many guns to get his point across. A few months later, in February 2014, the investigator made a surprise visit to Tom's case. They said that the forensic evidence had been collected at the scene in Everett de Leon's 1960s murder that linked him to the crime. Cass refused to speak and requested a lawyer. Following the interview, a search warrant was granted and attempted to find the 22 caliber handgun, but they didn't find the murder weapon. 4 days later, on February 24th of 2014, Thomas Cash shot himself with a 45 caliber handgun and died by suicide at the age of 67. His girlfriend Jane told the 911 operator that he believed the police were coming to arrest him that day in relation to a cold case, so he beat them to the punch, refusing to go back to prison again. The cold case unit told the Delano family in 2014 what they had learned about the fingerprint match, and the primary suspect had died by suicide. With his death, they said that they were confident who the killer was, and that they would make an official announcement and issue their findings and report. That report took 5 years to proceed. In November 2018, the CCU interviewed Jane again about Cass, phrase hoping to get the final beyond reasonable doubt confirmation that he was the killer. But she reiterated that Cass had never said anything to her that would incriminate him. The closet had come was what he had said about keeping quiet when you commit the crime that has no statute of limitations. 4 months later, on February 29, 2019, New Hampshire Cold Case Unit finally released his formal report on the 1966 murder of Everett DeLeon and announced that after 52 years, the case has finally been solved. Susie Murrell, an assistant attorney general for New Hampshire who oversees the cold case unit, stated that the reason it took 5 years to announce this, despite knowing since before Thomas Cass' death in 2014, was because of the extensive verification process and the lack of resource and staffing for the department. In response to the news, the Leon family issued this statement, end quote. Our family would like to take an opportunity not to only thank the initial investigation of our father's homicide, but also the New Hampshire Cold Case Unit. Without their Glenn efforts, we would not be here today. We're happy this day has come where our family has been given a small measure of justice. For almost 53 years of our family had wondered what happened on September 1st of 1966. There were a very long time in our family to know if we would ever receive the answer about what happened that day. Today our family has the long overdue answer we have been waiting for. Thomas Case killed a man in cold-blooded, a dad with loving family, a responsibility, honest, and hardworking member of the community who was just doing his job, all because he didn't want to leave any witness behind. The biggest thing Thomas Case robbed that day was not from the cash register. Not only that he shot Everett twice, he fired a third and final round at close range to the back of his head, after he had already fallen to the ground, defenseless, a vicious act that showed Cass' true colors and would refute and claim self-defense he had made invoked and had been caught. Thomas' case was bizarre. He robbed a gas station, post office building in Main Street in the prime time of the morning. Likely one of the busiest spots in Endeavor. It's possible he was interrupted, which is why the fault was left on, but he wasn't caught. He got away. What are the odds? He wasn't caught in an act. He was very lucky. While I'm not sure if this senseless act of violence could have been prevented, I'm sure it happened today. The killer be caught. In a way, Everett DeLeon and his family never got justice. Cass evaded law enforcement by taking his own life. He fled from justice. At least that the Leon family has some soul in knowing their father, mystery killer, is still out there. Despite this, every story is still one of hope. Hope that the case can be solved, even after a lifetime worth of years had passed. Hope against the naysayers who say this will never be solved. Hope that fights against the odds. So here's to the ones who fight for justice, whose case had gone on 5 decades without answer. There's always hope. Ask about your family case. There may be just be fingerprints on file that's waiting for his match to be made. And if you look for his name, you'll see pictures of him. And I'm looking at the pictures on my phone right now. And it's a very, very, very sad story. How how people can be so mean. Like, you really took somebody's life for money, which it wasn't even a lot. It may have been back then, but it wasn't a lot. You took a father and a husband, a brother, and it sucks. But like they say, if there's some cases that are still not solved to this day, but don't give up because it will be solved. Your case will be solved. Keep pushing, keep fighting, um, because it will be solved. I think the DNA and the scientists to solve all these cases are going to get better every year. So your case will be solved. Guys, I will see y'all Wednesday with a new video. Have a good day.